Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast, where today I'm not talking about Torchwood. Yay! The crowd goes wild. I am talking about The Sunmakers, the latest Doctor Who DVD brought to us by those wonderful people at 2 Entertain. Ah, bless them. Now, when it comes to The Sunmakers, we're talking Fourth Doctor story. I think it's the last story to be released from series 15, or is it 14? Or is it season? Or does it matter? Either way, it's a Tom Baker story, it's got Leela in it, and it's set on the planet Pluto. Yes, I know. Pluto is no longer classed as a planet. Well, I don't care. According to this story, it's on the planet Pluto. According to the extras, Pluto was dropped when the next planet out was found on an elliptical orbit, and then everyone just went, ooh, there's more lumps out there. Perhaps we should reclassify it. We'll call it a minor planet, or an extra large asteroid, or Jeff. Anyway, I'm sorry, I've rambled and I've got ahead of myself. We're talking about a Doctor Who story, made in the 70s, at a height of massive rampant inflation, and quite easily citable as one of the worst looking Doctor Who stories of all time. I won't pretend to say that I love this story, because I didn't. I'm not overly fond of it these days, but as always, and thank God for the drinking game, it's better than I remember it being. No real surprise there. Most of the stories released on DVD, especially towards the end, have been better than I remember them. Still not brilliant. But it's a Robert Holmes story. Not one of his best. But that's ridiculous. That's like saying, you know when we say we'd rather watch Doctor Who than anything else on TV? Well, that's this. This is one of the stories that kind of tests that. It's not awful. Oh God, it's not awful. Some people love it. It's a satire. I'm not completely sold on what it's a satire about. On the face of things, it's a satire on, well, the British taxation system. Or just economists. Now, there's a lovely documentary that puts arguments for both sides, with it being a right-wing or a left-wing commentary. On whose side is it on? Basically, on the planet Pluto, there are 6 gigantic cities. It's a bit silly, really. And each of these cities has their own sun. Hence the reason it's called the Sunmakers. Something that's only mentioned once. It's a great title. I'm not going to argue with that. What I am going to argue with is, well, the rest of it, really. People are taxed to death, and then beyond death. And then people hide. But the people who are hiding from the system are just as bad, if not slightly worse, than the people who are running the system. Either way, the workers are the ones who suffer. Yes, there are shades of 1984, there are shades of Brave New World, there are shades of, well, Robin Hood, if you really want to go down that road. There are jokes like corridors being called P45, but that's going to go over the heads of most of the kids watching. Yes, saying that Doctor Who is a kids' show will get me shot one day. But in the 70s, that's really what it was seen as. It hadn't been reinvented as a family show. No. It was seen as a kids' show, it was sold as a kids' show, but it wasn't written as one because we know about the patronising of it. Moving on. It's not important. It's got K9 in it. That's a good thing. It is cited by Louise Jameson, that's Leela, as being one of her all-time favourite stories, so it can't be that bad. The reason that she says that is because at the time she really, really didn't see eye to eye with Tom. Narratively, Leela went off with one group and Tom went off with another group, in order to find things out and fight the system. Perfectly reasonable narrative structuring. It does mean that Louise didn't have to spend time with Tom. Now, these days, Louise and Tom have buried the hatchet, and not necessarily in each other's back, and genuinely like each other. But then, it wasn't exactly bliss. It's a tremendously straightforward plot. The Doctor and Leela arrive and manage to prevent someone's, suicide. The reason the guy's committing suicide is because he can't afford to pay his taxes. Everyone runs. In fact, that's actually one of the lines. Everyone runs from the taxman. And perhaps we all do it to some respect. Or at least we would if we could. There is a political comedian who says, "I don't mind paying my taxes. I just do mind how they're spent." It's like giving a thug some bone china and asking them to protect it, or words to that effect. Money may be an illusion, but it's an illusion we all agree upon and are quite willing to go with. Which again is kind of the flaw of the whole story. These people have enough power to create suns, to build cities on Pluto. But unless the money's coming from somewhere else, it doesn't matter, because they run an entire world. And if you run an entire world, money at that point becomes pointless, because you already own everything. It becomes a matter of management and resourcing. You know what I mean? Or is it just an idea on the tiny outskirts of my mind? I am rambling on a monumental level here, and I'm so sorry. Look, it's a good story. You know I'm going to say that. It's not brilliant. It's really not. The Doctor arrives, gets involved. The local villains are there. Ah, yes, the local villains. Now, basically, you've got the local villainry represented on 3 levels. You've got the tax inspector, the tax inspector's aid, which allows the tax inspector, of course, to talk and ramble and relate to the audience exactly what's going on. And then you've got his boss, who runs the company. The company is run, in this particular guise, by possibly one of the oddest performances in Doctor Who history. His boss is called the Collector. Now, I won't spoil the ending by saying who he finally turns out to be, or indeed what. But it's so animalistic, so creepy, that it sticks with you long afterwards. It's no Davros, but it does have a certain creepiness that really belongs in a much darker tale. One thing that I have completely neglected to talk about so far is, of course, Michael Keating. Yes, Michael Keating, hurrah, huzzah, what a nice bloke, you'll meet him at conventions, he's brilliant. He was also Villa, the best character in Blake 7, a person who I thought I'd dedicate my entire life to and follow his examples. A complete and utter coward, someone who would pretend to be drunk in order to avoid work. I saw him as an ideal person, someone to emulate. Yeah, you don't get through life emulating people like that. A, they're not real, and B, you can only really copy them if you don't tell everyone that you intend being lazy. He's not lazy, Right, Michael Keating is an actor. Villa is a character in another programme, Blake 7, which eventually came about after this. It kind of went into production really soon afterwards. Not only did it go into production soon after this, but a lot of the crew, and especially Dudley Simpson, more about that in a moment, ended up working on. Blake 7 is one of my personal loves of sci-fi. I just adore it. I must get around to watching every episode again. Sky was meant to be bringing it back. It all went quiet about that. I wonder if it's been cancelled. Be an enormous shame, but not a massive surprise. I'm not completely sure what they'd do, especially given what Blake was accused of. Of course, he was innocent, but he had the memories implanted, and that's a whole different podcast for a whole different time. Is there a Blake 7 podcast? I'm sure there should be one. If there is, I'm quite willing to send stuff. Anyway, stop talking about it. Blake 7's brilliant. Michael Keating is the only actor to appear in every single episode of Blake 7. Avon doesn't appear till episode 2. It's brilliant. If you've never seen it, track it down, watch that. This is Blake 7 without Blake. Michael Keating's character is nothing like Villa, but the government are in control. They pump gas into the air to control the civilization. Everyone's underground, nobody goes outside. It's got a lot of parallels with Blake 7. Perhaps I should see it that way. Perhaps that's why I should be enthusiastic about this. It's kind of proto-Blake 7. Or Blake 7 if the Doctor turned up and solved everything. Yes, let's see it that way. Let's embrace that. So, ignoring what I've just said, let's talk about the extras. First off, commentary, Tom Baker, Louise Jameson, Michael Keating, and the director Pennant Roberts. That's a pretty strong commentary, and listening to it, it's actually quite funny. Tom says some things that would just be hilarious taken out of context. We have our traditional making-of documentary, Running from the Taxman. But it also looks as, well, the science behind the whole story. It's got actors Louise Jameson, Michael Keating, Pennant Roberts, and Dominic Sandbrook, and astronomer Marek Kumar, all chatting away. Now, one of the real reasons to buy this disc is the next documentary. It's part 2 of The Doctor's Composer, Dudley Simpson talking about his work. It's shockingly short. It's not a terribly short documentary. It's just when you're watching it, you're going, oh, please show us more. It's a superb thing. There's at least 2 podcasters who are going to be over the moon watching this documentary. But it's just not going to give us enough. If anyone can track down a chat with Dudley, go with it. He's just a great chatter. He knows everything. My God, this guy's impressive. His work, well, great. And he also did, again, Blake 7, every episode. We've got outtakes. Now that's misleading. The reason it's misleading is because it's got the word S. It's an outtake. It's a series of one scene played over and over again with a gun failing to go off. Yeah, a plastic... No, it's not even plastic. God help us. A cardboard oblong gun. It's the sort of thing someone would have knocked up in the garage and gone, I'm really sorry, I haven't got time, but this is the sort of thing I've got in mind, and somebody's gone off and gone, I will call that finished, shall we? Yes, we've got our subtitles, our production notes, a photo gallery, the PDFs, and a coming soon for Day of the Daleks. Oh my God, Day of the Daleks is brilliant. I've actually seen the promo copy of Day of the Daleks. Special edition is just... You've no idea. It's awesome. There's been extra stuff shot. Now, I know that on the teaser trailer you see stuff in CGI, but that's not what makes this brilliant. What makes it brilliant is that they've gone out of their way, gone to the original location, got new actors, new Daleks, new Ogrons, new unit soldiers, and filmed new footage using the original an original 1970s Ariflex. It's a 16mm camera. They've degraded that new footage, shoved it into the new episode. You now have a proper Dalek army. It's got proper Dalek voices. Oh my God, it is just wonderful. I'll review it properly very, very soon, but basically it's one of the best releases from the Pertwee era going. And it's got the same plot as Terminator, only with Daleks. Oh my God, it hasn't got this completely same plot, because that would be a bit icky if you think about it. Reese, we're looking at you. Right, I've rambled far too much. The Sunmakers is out now on DVD. Buy it. I'm talking about Torchwood very soon. God knows when this will get uploaded, because I still don't have any broadband. Be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC.
No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.